Chapter 3. Rushing through the doors of Hadley Elementary, Nick saw Allie waiting in the lobby with Miss Norris from the nurse's office.
"Thank you for coming so quickly, Sheriff Moran,"
Miss Norris said, taking Allie's hand and leading her over to him.
"Thank you for calling. What happened?"
Nick lifted Allie up into his arms.
"Allie has a fever of 101.6. I wouldn't have disturbed you otherwise. I realize how busy you are, but it's school policy."
"Man, I appreciate your calling."
"Daddy, can we go home now?"
Allie asked, resting her head upon his shoulder.
"Yeah, do you have everything?"
Allie's classwork is inside her book bag.
"Thank you for your help."
"You're very welcome."
She smiled pleasantly.
"Have a good day."
Nick nodded, not mistaking the woman's warm disposition for anything other than professional courtesy. After situating Allie in the back seat, Nick got into the car and drove away.
"Can I stay with Grandma and Grandpa?"
She asked wearily.
"Yeah, I'll call Chase at 3 so he can come pick you up."
By the time Nick arrived at his parents' home, Allie was fast asleep. Minnie rushed out to the car just as Nick pulled up.
"Nicky, what happened?"
Minnie asked, practically bursting at the seams with anticipation for him to unbuckle Allie from the back seat. Once done, she pulled the child out of his arms and held her tightly.
"Hey, Grandma." "Oh, she's burning up,"
Minnie gasped, with her hand upon Allie's forehead.
"I better call Dr. Turney."
Nick's heart sped up with just the mention of a doctor, making him overwhelmed with fear. After all, fevers were serious, especially in young children.
"You hear me, Nicky?"
Minnie's voice rang in his ear as she followed him into the house.
"I'm gonna see if Dr. Turney can make a house call. He's just up the road there."
Before Nick could answer, static came over the radio.
"This Sheriff Moran?"
Nick said, taking the call while unintentionally cutting his mother off. He paused. "This is emergency dispatch. There is a collision at the intersection of 9th Avenue and Grady involving 2 vehicles. No injuries have been reported. Do you copy?"
"Copy that."
Nick said, releasing the button before stuffing the radio back into his pocket.
"I've got to go."
He added, feeling like a first-class heel for having to leave Allie.
"Is everything okay?"
"Yeah, it's fine. Call Dr. Turney if you think that's best. I'll call you later to see what he says."
"Nick, I know you're doing your best, but everybody needs a little help sometimes. Your father and I don't mind if Allie stays with us for the time being. I know all about the counterfeit case you're working on. It's been all over the news this morning."
"Really?"
Nick chuckled.
"Word has it some lady from the Treasury Department's been snooping around asking a lot of questions."
"Don't worry, Ma, I can handle it."
Nick said, before going over to Allie, who was lying on the sofa. He reached down and touched her forehead. Judging by the heat beneath his palm, her temperature was definitely rising.
"Hey, Allie,"
he whispered. She opened her eyes and stared up at him.
"Dr. Turney's going to come and give you something to make you feel a whole lot better. I'll call you later. Get some rest."
He turned to his mother.
"Thank you again."
"It's okay. Your father and I will take good care of her. Don't you worry."
"I'm not worried."
Nick said, trying to sound convincing. He said goodbye and then left. That evening, Nick sat on the side of the bed in his old bedroom, watching Allie sleep as thoughts of his day filled his head. What started off as a simple fender bender turned into a high-speed chase, resulting in Nick having to pull his gun on the driver and read him his rights. It was more than Nick wanted to deal with. Fortunately for him, Dr. Turney's diagnosis confirmed a mild ear infection for Allie that could be cured with the help of an antibiotic.
"Tomorrow's Friday, Nick,"
George said. Nick looked up. There stood his parents in the doorway, staring at him and Allie. If Nick didn't know better, they had the same look of pity they had when he told them that Susan had left. He couldn't catch a break.
"Let the child stay here and rest over the weekend,"
George added.
"Your father's right. There's no reason to take Allie out in the night air. Just let her stay."
As much as Nick wanted to take his daughter home with him, he knew he had to do what was best for her. Nick dropped his gaze to Allie. She looked so small and helpless lying there.
"Yeah, sure."
Nick pushed the words out.
"So Chase never came by, huh?"
"I called him, but there was no answer."
"I guess I better go home and check on things there. Just give me a call when she wakes up. I'd like to tell her good night."
Nick stood up.
"Go home and get some rest. You look beat." "I will. By the way, how much do I owe you for the medicine?"
He asked, pulling the wallet from his pocket.
"You put that away."
George's tone was firm.
"That's my granddaughter. I was happy to do it."
Not wanting to offend his father, Nick pushed the wallet back down into his pocket.
"Thank you. I appreciate your help."
George's lips twitched with an awkward line of a smile. On his way to the car, Nick heard the front door slam against its wooden frame.
"Hey, just a minute,"
George said, making his way down to Nick's car.
I don't have to tell you that your mother's pretty upset about this whole mess with the fire and the counterfeit money. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to investigate this case like I would any other. But this isn't just any other case. You and I both know what something like this could lead to. I'm fully aware of the situation. Is that what you told that Miss Stone woman from the Treasury Department?
Nick wasn't surprised that news of her arrival had gotten back to his father. The matter had become bigger than Callahan itself, and now people were probably sitting on the edge of their seats with a bowl of popcorn waiting to see what was going to happen next.
She and I talked briefly,
he said finally.
You watch your back, son. I don't want this mess spinning out of control. Don't worry, it won't. Good night, Nick. Good night, sir.
Nick got into the car and drove off. By the time Nick got home, it was a little after 10 o'clock. Even from the living room, he could hear the bass blaring from Chase's stereo. Nick had dealt with confrontations all day, and now he had to confront his son. He went down the hall and knocked on Chase's door. There was no answer. Figuring Chase couldn't hear him, Nick opened the door. There sat Chase at his desk reading while bobbing his head to the music and tapping his pencil against the side of his desk.
Do you know what time it is?
Nick yelled over the sound of the stereo.
Hey, Dad, you're home.
Chase pushed the button, turning it off. Silence fell over the room.
Allie wasn't feeling well. I had to pick her up early from school. She'll be staying with your grandparents at least until Saturday. Your grandmother said she tried to call you, but you didn't answer. Where were you? Where was I?
Chase asked, as if not having understood the question.
Yes, Chase, where were you? Grandpa came by after school. We hung out, talked, listened to music. Then we met up with a couple of friends at Marty's. I was back home by 6. I didn't know Allie was sick. Is she going to be okay? She'll be fine. Kids were talking about the fire today. Rumor has it this kid and his brother started. Do they go to your school? Yeah, but you know how kids are. They'll say just about anything to see if anybody's listening. They said something about some fake money being made. Yeah, I know. What would you say if I knew the people involved? Do you? Never mind.
Chase shook his head.
I shouldn't have said anything. Chase, if you know something about this case, I need you to tell me. But would I be telling my dad or the sheriff of Boyd County? Right now, I'm your dad. They don't see it that way. They? Who are you talking about? Are these people friends of yours? Hardly.
He chuckled.
What do you mean? Nothing. I'm not saying anything else. I'm sorry, Dad, I can't.
His face marred with lines of fear. Nick had never seen Chase like this before.
Don't worry about it. Listen, it's late. I'm going to turn in and let you finish your work. Okay.
Chase said, flipping the switch on the stereo as bass filled the room again. Seeing the miserable look on Nick's face, Chase cracked a smile followed by an apology as he turned down the volume.
Good night, Chase. Good night, Dad.
Nick left, closing the door behind him.